Sairam. Sairam all to our monthly session of our regional inspiration channel. And our guest of honor for today is Balaji. As all of you know that this quarter, we are sharing the students' experiences of our region, Region 10. And as part of that one, the last month, October, we had Suvarna and Suresh, who are alumni of our institute, have shared their experiences. And today we have one of our students, Balaji, who hails from the portals of Patti. He'll be sharing his experiences. And before I pass on the mic to him, I would like to share a small brief about him. JRB, who is fondly called as, or Balaji is called as JRB fondly. He started his journey into Sai fold right out of high school in 1994 when he joined Sri Satsai Institute of Higher Learning to do his bachelor's in science, majoring in chemistry. Subsequently, after completing his BSc, he went on to complete his master's and then subsequently MBA. The 8.5 years he spent in the physical proximity of our beloved Sai not only taught him science, but most importantly, spirituality and what it means to seek God. He considers these 8.5 years are very formative in his spiritual journey, the greatest time period in his life, and cherishes every moment of that one. On the worldly front, Balaji is a heartfelt, driven leader with more than 19 years of experience in global product management and marketing. J.R. Balaji is committed to assisting organizations in bringing forth cutting-edge product innovations and solutions to customers around the world in the areas of cybersecurity and systems management. As of now, Balaji is present or living in Austin. And most importantly, like when he studied in the portals in front of, in the very abode of Prashantanilaya, he was a very active sports person and he's an athlete basically, and also participated in enacted in dramas in front of Swami, which Swami has organized on various occasions, and also a speaker. With this brief introduction, I would like to request Balaji to come and share his experiences with Swami when he was physically present at Swami. Sairam. Sairam Balaji.
Saira Murli, thank you so much for, first of all, giving me the opportunity. I would like to offer my most humble pranams at the lotus feet of Swami. As we always say, right, it's not me who is speaking, it's he who is speaking through me to himself, right? So it's all, ekoham bahushyam, as we say, from the creation. And as I think about every time I get an opportunity to share something, I will tell you in all honesty that it's as much as it is me sharing my experiences with you all to listen. It's a reminder for myself, what I went through. It's me going through my own satsang, right? And listening to myself. Saying it also means I'm listening to it and I'm absorbing. And it means a lot. I think so. I have an extremely busy schedule in my work. I spend 12, 13 hours a day working. So this is a welcome break. So thank you, Murli, for first of all, giving me the opportunity to take a break from the grind of the busy mundane life, to pause and think about Swami, think about what it means, think about what it meant as I spent those 8.5 years in the physical proximity of Bhagwan. I want to begin by saying that, obviously I'm going to be sharing experiences and there are several moments, interesting moments that I want to share from my 8.5 year journey being there. But I also started thinking about what is the theme, right? Yes, it's all about sharing experiences, but to me, it's like it really comes down to what it means for each and every one of us to have been. In a way, we are all contemporaries of the avatar. The fact that we lived at the time that avatar also lived on the earth, is oftentimes we take it for granted, but it's probably once in a millennium moment for us, probably once in many lifetime moments, and and to cherish every moment of that and absorb and carry forward the mission. That's really what I think is the theme of what I'm about to talk to today. In that context, I'm reminded of a very close to heart incident that I still remember. It kind of rings in my ear. That's the way all of us have to have a hook in life. Yes, Swami in generally is our hook, but there is something more specific to each of us. All of us connect to that hook to Swami in different ways. My hook to Swami is really the speech he gave in the hostel. I think it was during I don't remember. He did come to our hostel. Swami used to come very regularly to hostel in the 80s and 90s, early 90s, right? I joined in the year 1994. That was interestingly the year when there was a little bit of a transformation in the way Swami's physical proximity with students in general and all that was kind of going through its own evolution. If you look at Swami's life, it has never been the same. It was evolving over every 5 years or 10 a decade. Things evolved a little bit. So I got to see a little bit of glimpse of what students experienced in the 80s and 90s, which I'm glad I did. Right, I just joined right at the cusp of the transformation, but things also changed starting at 94 and beyond. But prior to that, obviously, Swami used to visit the hostel very often. Oftentimes, he would just probably walk in to the rooms. I'm told he would just come in. December 25th is actually the hostel anniversary. So prior to, I think, up until 93, 94, it was a regular affair for Swami to come to hostel, visit a hostel on every Christmas day. After Swami finishes the morning silver door darshan and then all the carols and programs are over, Swami would just make his way to hostel. I got one glimpse of that in 1994. Swami did come to hostel in that December, and he came in. I still remember in yellow robe. But subsequent to that, Swami's visit to hostel was not that frequent. He did come a few occasions and all that, but he came both during my second year MSc and second year MBA, and those are very memorable. And they're memorable not alone for the simple reason that Swami came. It is also memorable for the simple reason that a lot is going on in the student's mind, especially when you're in the final year of your studies, right? So you've enjoyed and cherished every moment of being there and all the proximity and love and affection that Swami showered. And you're kind of in this cocoon of protection of Swami. And suddenly you're like, now I'm going to go to this wide world. And it unless you go through it, it's hard to explain. But it's like there's a lot going on in your head. So those things are going on in our head. That's why it's even more kind of I don't know which word is better to choose, nostalgic, melancholic kind of feeling, right? Hey, I'm going through this, and soon I may not be in this kind of proximity, and what does it mean for my life? Of course, I will later in this session talk about how Swami, in his own unique way, kept reminding me, even until recently, that hey, everything that's happening in your life is my plan. Nothing is happening by accident, right? It reminds me, but it reminds me in a very subtle way, and I will come back to that. But where I'm going with all this is in my final year, MSc or MBA, I don't exactly remember. This speech, you'll probably find it on YouTube. If you don't, please email me and I'll be glad to share a copy. I have downloaded it from YouTube as a reminder. It's on my PC and I keep playing it every now and then just to remind myself. So in this speech was very different because Swami spoke about a lot of things. He talked about like at one point in time in this speech, Swami was saying, hey, you all don't understand. I do a lot of things. You think I go to night and I sleep, but I'm traveling the world. I'm looking at a lot of things, but you all don't understand all that. It's very difficult for you to understand and for me to explain. Swami is saying all that, and he even said at one point in time there was a brother of ours who was sitting in the audience. That brother used to stay in the Purachandra auditorium where Swami was staying at the time. And Swami said, hey, you get up, tell the people what time did I wake you up last night? And that student got up and said, Swami, you woke me up at around 12:30. So Swami said, see, he's telling me that. And then Swami is narrating a lot of different, he was touching on a lot of things, right? He didn't go into a lot of detail there. But in the same speech, I think if I remember, he said at one point in time, okay, you're all finishing your year, go, but you go wherever you want. You go to any village, anywhere, you take any job, right? But remember one thing, I will always be in you, around you, below you, above you, and beside you. Now, Swami has said that many, many times in discourses. That's not the first time Swami has said that. That is not the last time Swami has said that. But that one time rings in my ear repeatedly. And Swami didn't stop at that. Uh, he said, and you should listen to the speech. It's very beautiful in the way, like that snippet that he talks about. Swami also went on to say that, but ఆ భావాన్ని దృఢం చేసుకోండి, he said in Telugu, which means that, hey, keep that thought of what I just said in your heart, like keep it very firm in your heart, because it's not just what Swami said, it's how much we hold it to ourselves and keep it in our heart and remind ourselves. That will make all the difference in our own spiritual path and spiritual journeys, is my feeling. So it's really about taking those moments and seeing and connecting to it, is I think is all that matters. With that introduction, I want to kind of get into, there is always a story, right? Every person that has come into Swami's fold has their own story of how they came to Swami. Each story is special in its own right. And I have my own story too. It all began at a very young age when I was probably in my, I would say, 11th grade, if I'm fairly accurate. At that time, we were in the city of Salem in Tamil Nadu. I was born in Tanjavur, and I lived there pretty much all my life. And then my dad was transferred to Salem for a couple of years towards the end of his retirement. So those 2 years I spent in Salem, and then came back, and then eventually joined Parthi. During that time, I don't remember the exact details of the dream, but I remember the dream. So I remember even where I was sleeping, in which room I was sleeping in that house. I was sleeping on the ground on a mat. And early in the morning, I had this dream. And by now, I'm not a Swami devotee. I've heard about Swami. I've seen um, people who never close. There's a family which lived close by our house, in whose house Vibhuti used to come from Swami's photo all the time. So I'd seen all that, but I don't know what it meant. I just saw it, and I just never made anything of it. I was just this young, carefree boy that was running around playing and having a carefree life. So maybe it all kind of subconsciously went into my head, but I didn't think of it much at the time. And it was one morning, early morning, I had this dream, and Swami is coming and talking to me and communicating a lot of things about life and spirituality and all that. Again, I don't remember all the details, but it was something to that effect. And I woke up, and then when I woke up, I didn't know what to think of it. I was like, okay, oh, interesting. I felt very good about that dream. And I sat up on my mat, and then I started, and I wish the dream continued. So I was like kind of closing my eye, and I was kind of continuing the conversation with Swami on my own, right? The dream is over, right? I'm sitting up and I'm kind of communicating, I'm thinking about, and kind of talking to Swami, and imagining Swami also replying in my own mind, right? It's going on for some time. And then finally I woke up and left. And after that, I never thought of it, of anything, just life continued, busy with studies, finished my 12th grade. And it's at that time that, one of, and I should be eternally thankful to them, one of our neighbors who came and told my mom. My mom was worried, hey, I don't know what he's going to do next for college. I'm not clear what his goals are in life. And that lady came to my mother and said, hey, there's Sanatana Sardi here. This month, Sanatana Sardi, there is a advertisement for application request for Swami's college. Why don't you have him apply? So my mom comes and gives it to me. And it's like, it's very subconscious, right? I'm not a Swami devotee. I'm not like passionate. I'm not like thinking about going and working and studying in Swami's college. But it was kind of naturally flowed. It's as if that is what I was destined to be anyway. So I just promptly applied. I didn't push back or anything. I applied, and I essentially load all the details. In fact, the way it was you have to apply, you have to first send a request, and then they will send you prospectus. Then you fill the prospectus and send it back to them. So by the time all this happened, I was already sort of a little delayed in by the time the deadline was coming up. But anyway, I wrote a letter apologizing that I'm a little late and asking them to consider, and I wrote all that, and then I sent it off. And then the request came, went through the interviews, and as destiny would have it, I got the opportunity to join Swami's college. It was a very interesting journey. And then when I joined Swami's college, it was a very different experience, because up until then, I was kind of like this far removed, sort of curious person about Swami, but never really, I wouldn't call myself like an ardent devotee or anything like that. But all that changed obviously from the time I joined Swami's college, and then right from day one. In fact, even during the interview, when I went to Puttaparthi, stayed for about probably a week to finish my exams and interviews. Not even maybe a week, maybe 4 or 5 days. By the time I went through that process, my mind was completely made up. It's like a complete transformation that I was like, okay, this is where I want to be. There is no discussion, there is no debate about all that. So I made my way back to my home because obviously exams are over, I'm selected, but obviously there was a month or so before I needed to join back in the college in June. So I went back home. That time there was no communication, no phone communication, nothing. Went back home and told my parents, no, I got the opportunity. And my dad's response was, "Oh, that is fantastic. But are you going to apply to other colleges? Is that what you want to do?" Like he's not sure what I want. Like he's like giving me options and choice. And I'm like, "No, I'm good. I got admission in Swami's college. I'm joining, right?" So I literally applied to no college, wrote no entrance exam, tried nothing, no coaching center, nothing. Swami's college is the only one I applied for. I got it and I joined. So when I think about it, I didn't think about it much then. I didn't think about it even subsequent years. But much later, when I came out of there and started working, is when it dawned on me as I started introspecting about that, what it really meant. It's fascinating in the sense that there is a story in Shirdi Sai Satcharita where Shirdi Baba says that I draw to me my devotee like a thread tied to the feet of a sparrow. Right? You just have to come back. If you're destined to come, you will come no matter where you are. So that as I read that, it all connected for me, and like I think about, hey, if it's meant to happen, it happens. uh, After I joined Swami's college, there are many interesting occasions and opportunities, and I'm going to kind of talk through it as it comes to my mind, and I'm going to do my best to cover all of that. Now I would say though that everything that we go through, one of the things that Swami says in his discourses is every spiritual activity, whether you are doing, karma yoga, bhakti yoga, jnana yoga, right? Whatever you do, if you do a combination of the three and all of that, why do we do all that? And Swami has given an answer to this. He has told this in many discourses. I have been at the fortune of sitting in front and discussing or listening, but it never really meant much to me at that young age. It all kind of comes back to you over years. And it dawned on me that Swami used to say that it's all about purification of mind. I'm like, okay, what does purification of mind even mean? I didn't know what it meant when I initially heard it, but it comes back to me now that the fact that we are sitting here in this Zoom call talking about Swami, the fact that anything you do, the fact that you sit in front of your altar and pray every day, it's all really about purification of mind. It's about in a way, if you look at it, spirituality is a mind game, right? Yes, there is a physical part of it involved, but it's really all everything that happens in spirituality happens in the mind. Because as mind is powerful, right? Mind is a seed that eventually creates actions. So I think about it deeply because all of the activities we do, we think of it, we think we are serving somebody, we think somebody else is serving us, we think we are having a peace of mind when we are doing bhajans. We think we are enjoying and thinking about Swami when you're engaged in a satsang. But everything in my mind comes back to only one thing, which is it's all about purification of mind. The purification of mind then leads to um, a state where you are free of all the things that bind you in the physical form, and that slowly leads to eventually to liberation. That's how I think about it every time I think about it. So let me kind of touch on a few. I briefly touched on this at the very beginning. Is that, and I'm going to come back to the point of where I left Puttaparthi to join work, and I'm going to again go back to my time spent. So I'm going to kind of jump around the timelines a little bit. But I think it's the right time to talk about the fact that after I finished my studies in Puttaparthi, the fact that I even did my MSc and MBA, it's funny. People will think, "Are you so ambitionless?" But the only reason I even did those is because I could spend 2 more years with Swami. That's how I thought about it at that time, right? I did my BSc, and the natural progression was to do MSc. Okay, that was natural, but I was happy to get 2 more years. But then what really prompted me to do my MBA was, okay, I wasn't even thinking about my career. I wasn't thinking about getting a degree and all of that. If you're done your MSc, the only logical way in which you could stay in Parthi was there's nothing after MSc. You could do, I mean, there was no chemistry MTech at that time, right? So MTech was one route. If you had done mathematics or something, physics, you could go down the MTech route and spend a couple of more years. Or Swami has to give you permission to do PhD. And PhD wasn't my cup of tea, and I never thought about it. So the only logical way to extend my stay by 2 more years was MBA. So I applied. Another interesting incident happened at that time. So I was in the bhajan group, as brother said. I had the good fortune of sitting in front of Swami every single day, singing. Probably I sang more than 1,000 bhajans in the physical proximity of Swami in my eight and a half years there. So one day I'm sitting in the bhajan hall and I wanted to get the blessings from Swami for my MBA prospectus. I'd already gotten the prospectus and ready. So Swami comes into the bhajan hall. Those days, oftentimes Swami will walk into the bhajan hall. So when I was sitting in the front, and it's very close. If you all know that Swami's chair is there, and then we all pretty much sit touching Swami's chair. But when Swami tries to make his way into the bhajan hall, we literally squeeze ourselves backwards just to make enough space for Swami to squeeze through. Right? That's literally all the space there is. So Swami comes, and then I don't even have space to, like, somehow I wiggle myself. As an athlete, I could probably do that. I knelt down. In that angle, it's hard to kneel down. And I held the prospectus and said, Swami. Swami said, what? MBA, Swami, I said. Swami immediately was like, MBA? So the way Swami said MBA was like, you doing MBA? So that's literally was going on in my mind. So I was like, a lot of things were going on in my mind. What does Swami mean by that? Then, yes, Swami, I said. Then Swami then said, he said it in Hindi. He said, why so much hurry? Wait karo, exam ka result dekho, uske baad apply karo. Meaning, you see your MSc results and then apply for MBA. So that even got me more panic, right? What does he mean by that? Am I going to fail in the exam or something? I wasn't that bad at studies, but all that was kind of playing in my mind. I didn't know what to think of it. Then Swami looks like at the far, as if he's like kind of peering at my future. And then he did like that. And then he looked at me and said, Chesko Manchidi or something like that. And then he nicely touched his hand on the prospectus, right? And then he walked off. So needless to say, I went through the exam and got into the MBA, right? And then, things were never the same again. But once I finished, and I want to relate a couple of more incidents kind of relating to this. After I finished my college, as I said, I had no interest in making a career outside. All I wanted to do was, like, you live in your own universe. It's like being in the Brindavanam, or being anything, being Devalokam, whatever you want to call it. It was like that in Parthi. So you just don't want to go out of the place anywhere. So all I wanted was just be there. So after I finished my studies, I obviously wanted Swami's permission and to work in Swami's ashram. So I stayed there for almost a period of 1.5 years. And it's even that is interesting because Swami at any point of time, that time could have said, okay, you go work outside. He did not say that. He did not give me a job, nor did he tell me to go, right? He just let me be there, enjoy his proximity. I used to sing every day in the morning in front of him. The morning bhajans, the students will not be there. So we had even more freedom, right? We had just few of us sitting in front of Swami, no mics, and we were just singing. So all that opportunity and proximity he gave, and it's my own mind's transformation that happened over the time. And I reached a point where I said, okay, maybe I should go out and work. Now, I could not have imagined that I would have said that right when I graduated from my MBA, right? When I graduated from my MBA, I was like, if Swami had told me to go out and work, I would have gone with a lot of sadness. I would have gone crying, right, out of the portals of Swami's college. So probably Swami didn't want that. So Swami said, okay, you stay, you enjoy. I'm going to let transformation work through in your own mind. So over the period of 1.5 years, I came to a point where I'm like, okay, I think I'm ready to go out and work. That's probably what is best for me. So right when I was ready, and that was a time when Swami was not at all spending any time much with students. Like, he was so busy giving interviews in the morning and evening. And there were many students waiting, not just me. Like, there were probably like 30, 40 students waiting. And he just wouldn't communicate. He wouldn't say anything. There are students who are like, all I wanted Swami is to say is, please go and I will go, right? But I don't want to go without Swami telling me that. So they were kind of in that state, right? So, but I was going through my own transformation. And one fine day I said, okay, today I'm ready. I'm going to tell Swami and I'm going to leave. So I write a letter and I sit in the bhajan hall right next to the door, right? Because Swami will go in and come out of interview pretty often. And that is the best vantage point to get his attention. Of course, with Swami, if he wants to avoid you, you could stand in front of him. He will still pass through you. I can tell you some examples of that also in my own life there. But in this instant, I sat there with the letter in hand. Swami walks by, and after interview, Swami had gone out, and he was walking back to the interview room, and he sees me and he calls me. So I immediately step out of the bhajan hall and then kneel in front of him, and then I told him in Telugu, Swami, I plan to go outside and work. Swami immediately said, do that. That is what is good for you. And then I said, Swami Prasadam. Swami went inside the bhajan hall, came out with a few packets of vibhuti, gave it to me, nicely touched his hand and put his hand on my head and said, and then blessed me, right? And then I was very happy. So because Swami has given me permission, and all the other students were like, man, what magic did you do, right? We are all waiting here months. It was not 1 day, 2 day. Like when Swami wants to test you, he will test you like nobody else. So it was months after months were passing and Swami wouldn't communicate or say anything to anybody, right? So, but the way I think about it is like, he knew that I was going through my own transformation. And when the time was right, he didn't wait. As soon as I sat there, very first day, one day I sat, he calls me, takes the letter, blesses me. And then and then I go and about 7 days after I left Parthi, I got a job at Dell, right? I'm still with Dell, by the way. And things have been in kind of its own journey. I will also relate another very interesting incident right after that. So I finished college and I take Swami's blessings and I travel back to Bangalore where my sister was living and I was staying with her. And I don't know, like I had never thought about applying to a job. I had not written a resume. I had probably by then written a resume and kept it, but never really aggressively applied anywhere. So I'm like, okay, I'm starting from scratch, right? I have to apply, I have to figure out. It was not easy to get jobs. So I'm like this, and then one fine day, my sister was traveling to her friend's place. We all grew up together back in my hometown. So she was going to visit her friend, and she said, "Why don't you come along?" And the friend said that we have a consultancy very close to my house. Why don't you bring him and a resume, and we'll go take a look at them. So I went to them, went to the consultancy, gave my resume, and they said, "Hey, Dell is hiring. Do you want to apply?" And I said, okay. And then I go through the process, and a few days later, I have a job. But the interesting part isn't even that, right? So what happens there was on the day, so I go through, one of the other comment I was making early on was that there is a very subtle way in which Swami even now reinforces that he is planning my life every step of the way. It's either because anything important in my life either happens on a Thursday or it happens on a day that adds up to 9. And it happens with such frequency that it's not coincidence anymore, right? It just repeatedly happens. And I will probably give you a dozen examples like that. One such example is what I'm about to tell you is there is a multi-step process. I go through screening for the interview, then I go to some audio visual test, and finally there is an interview at Dell. And that interview happened to be on a Thursday. So I didn't plan it. The interview was on a Thursday. They said come at around 2:30 in the afternoon. We went there, but big process. By the time my interview happened, it was around 6:30 in the evening. We were waiting. And then 6:30 in the evening or so around my interview happens. And right after the interview, they call me and they gave me the offer letter saying that, hey, you're hired. Please come and join us, whatever, 10, 15, 20 days later for training. And I did not even realize, I knew it was Thursday, but I didn't, again, a lot of these things dawned on me over years as time progressed. But the interesting thing was I come out of the office, the building, which was in Whitefield in Bangalore. And again, no phones, no cell phones at the time. So I come to the nearby STD booth, as we call them. And I called my sister, right, before I travel back home. I called my sister and said, hey, I got the job and just, all that. My sister is okay, very good, congratulations and all that. And he said, your friend from Puttaparthi called you today. I'm like, why is my friend from Puttaparthi calling me? It's not like today we have phone, we can call anybody, it's hard to think about it. Those days, you don't just call somebody, just like that. And I'm like, why is he calling me from there? I don't know. So anyway, I took the bus back home to my sister. And then my sister had a phone, obviously, and I called him back. And he said, the reason I called you was because Swami was asking you about today. And probably Swami was asking about me right around the time in the evening, some darshan time, probably when I was waiting for my interview. And I said, what is Swami asking me? Is he now going to call me back? I was like, all the things were going on in my mind. All these days, Swami told me, gave me blessings and sent me away. Now is he calling me back? I don't know what is going to happen. So anyway, then I asked him what happened. He said Swami was distributing clothes, white clothes for students, and even to the boys who were waiting. And then he asked, where is the thin boy who is to sing bhajan? And then apparently Swami himself said, oh, but he took permission and went, it's okay. And then Swami walked off. So I was very glad to hear about that. I guess when I heard that at that time, a lot of things were happening in my mind, but I was glad that Swami thought about me on that day. Of course, as soon as then what I did was I immediately took the offer letter, went back to Parthi, and then sat in the same front door of the bhajan hall, hoping Swami will, bless me or something. But Swami saw me a couple of times, but never said anything, never came to me or blessed me or anything. He just saw me and walked off, right? So it's again Swami's way of doing things, right? He could give you all the attention in the world, or he could test you by completely ignoring you. You have to take it all in stride. That's what I learned. Anyway, so I sat there for a couple of days, hoping Swami might tell something, but Swami saw me a couple of times sitting there in front of Bhajan Hall with my offer letter, but he didn't say anything. So I went back to Bangalore and joined. But the interesting thing is, my badge at Dell adds up to 9. I had a representative ID that added up to 9. Even my phone extension added up to 9, right? Because that's probably when it started. And I always think about every time something important happens in my life, I always try to see if it adds up to 9. Sometimes I overdo it and I'm like, oh, it doesn't add up to 9. But I'm like, not everything has to add up to 9. Swami will only show signs when he has to. It does not mean he's not with me. So, but there are many, many, many incidents in which he has demonstrated that. Even when I applied to my green card here in the US, that particular date added up to 9. The day I got my green card in hand was a Thursday. So it is always one of these things. When my daughter was born, when he admitted in school, her school badge added up to 9. It's like unbelievable number of times it has added up. I'll tell you another interesting incident. When I have 2 daughters. So the younger one, when she was born in 2013. We were obviously going through doctor checkups and all that, and wondering when we should expect the baby. Towards the end of my wife's pregnancy, the doctor said, you had a C-section the first time, so we'll probably also do one more C-section. I don't want to risk a natural birth. And then she said, okay, so go check with your family. Tell me which day. Any time next 1 or 2 weeks would be good. The baby has developed fine. So just tell me when you're ready, and then we can do the C-section on that day. So we came home and we were talking to our parents and sister about which day. And obviously we as Hindus care a lot about the birth zodiac and all of that, and the star. So they all said, hey, this particular day is good. It was basically November 13th, right? So November 13th, they said is good because it's the same star as Lord Balaji. So, that's good. You should go and, give that day to the doctor. I was like, okay, I know I care about that star a lot also. But for me, it was like 13th November. 13 is not a very lucky number. It was playing on the back of my mind. Why is 13? It didn't make sense to me, but I was like, I'm torn, right? On one hand, I want to select, I thought I should just select a Thursday because, Thursday is good day. It doesn't matter which date. Thursday is Thursday. Swami has said that Thursday is always holy. But parents are saying, oh, it has to be based on the nakshatram and it's important. And I didn't think about it much. I was kind of reluctant. I was like, okay, let's go with it. One day, and suddenly one day it dawned on me. I was like, oh my God, let me go and work back. And it goes back. 13th November 2010 also adds up to 9. So I was fascinated. Okay, fine. That is Swami's way of showing me that he's there with me. So I anyway went ahead, and then she was born on 13th of November, and then we typically have a habit of naming the child on the 10th day. So on the day I was naming her was Swami's 85th birthday, right? 85th birthday was happening in the morning in Parthi, and I was naming her here in Bangalore. So it all means something special to me. So with that said, I'm going to go back in time now, in the time in Parthi, and I've had many, many, I would call sweet moments, spending time with Swami, and the time I cherish. I'm going to kind of remember. So I would start with with how I got into the music group. When I joined college, right at the beginning, there used to be bhajans in the hostel. The one interesting thing, and I was going to touch on this earlier and I missed this and I'm coming back to it, is I talked about purification of mind. I should also talk about pining for God. Swami used to often narrate about this incident in the life of Krishna, where, after Krishna left Vrindavan, he never really visited, right? When Krishna left from Vrindavan to Mathura, he never ever came back to Vrindavan in his entire life, right? So all the Gopikas and Gopalas were pining for the Lord their entire life. And Swami has narrated many, many incidents. And Swami used to also beautifully sing those Telugu songs about this devotee of this Gopika called Suguna. Swami used to sing that once Suguna was, sitting thinking about Krishna, and suddenly she sees Krishna in the lamp, in the jyoti of the lamp, and then she immediately comes joyfully to all these other gopikas and she sings. And Swami used to sing like Sugunaku kanipinchedanta Nanduni inta Gopaludanta Sugunaku kanipinchedanta. So this is a Telugu song. Obviously, I learned this from hearing from Swami many times. But essentially, I mean, those of you who have the opportunity should go listen to some of the Janmashtami discourses, and it will transport you completely to an entirely different world. But essentially, Swami says how Suguna was so happy seeing the Lord in the Jyoti. But for me, when I joined Puttaparthi in 1994, was the year of pining. All of us, all the students. The reason was that was the year of construction of Sai Kulwant Hall. In fact, when I remember when I went to Puttaparthi to write the exam, I got a little bit of a glimpse of the old mandir. Like a lot of people who have lived in Parthi will have fond remembrance of the old mandir. I'm sure Badar Murli had spent many years in that old mandir when it was there. But as we were leaving after the exams were over, we saw these huge pits being dug in the center of the mandir, right around outside the mandir, and we didn't know what it was. We were just, I was just a student. I came, wrote exam, and I didn't think much about it. Only when I came back and joined, we realized that there's this massive construction of Sai Kulantal happening, which meant that Swami wasn't coming back to Parthi in June at all. It could take months, right? So Swami did not come to Parthi probably for next 7 months. And we would hear like the teachers used to go to Brindavan every weekend by turns, and they would come back and narrate about all these glorious times Swami was spending with students in the Tri Brindavan. And the more they talk, the more we'll feel sad, right? Oh my God, what are we missing? We're missing all that. So it was an intense period of pining that Swami put us through. At that time, it was absolutely painful not having Swami. But now I think about it, it's nostalgia. It's like, okay, again, how often in your life will you get an opportunity to pine for a Lord like that? That itself is great. Our proximity, we got plenty and more after that. Obviously, we can never be, the proximity with Swami can never be plenty, right? We could have more today. But we got plenty of opportunities. Swami spent many, many years after that and spent more time in Puttaparthi. But that 6 months, 7 months initially was intense time of pining. That reminds me of another very small incident that I will narrate, which kind of led me to this habit, which I even today have. I read Shirdi Sai Satcharita. I try to read one chapter every day. But I will tell you how that began. It began because when I went to Puttaparthi to join college, I was with a group of friends. They were all Sai devotees already. So I was with a group of them going there. And the very first day we land in the afternoon, they were all like off to Chitravati Road. And they said, we're going to buy this book. It's a very good book. Whenever you read that book with some prayer, your prayers will come true. So I went with them, and then they all bought the book. I also bought a book. I still have the book here behind me in this bookshelf. That book I bought in 1994. That book is still with me. I tell my kids jokingly that book is older than both of their ages put together. So that book I bought, and then I kept it with me, and I used to read it occasionally here and there. I wasn't in the regular habit of reading in the initial years. In the very first year, I think, if I remember, after Swami came back to Puttaparthi and all that, maybe first or second year of my undergraduate, I one day said, okay, let me read this Charita, let me do a Parayanam. Let me finish reading it in 7 days and let me see what happens. And I had no prayer. Normally you will pray about something and read the book, but I never had any prayer. I was like, okay, let me just read this book and see what happens. So I finished reading the book in 7 days. And I think either on the 7th day or 8th day, one of those 2 days, evening darshan, we were going to Mandir. And usually what happens is there's a gate and we're all standing outside and the gates open and then students just run inside, helter skelter. At that time, Professor Sudhir Bhaskar used to be the one that was walking behind Swami. So Professor Sudhir Bhaskar and another professor by name Bhaskar Prabhakar Rao used to basically walk behind Swami. So Sudhir Bhaskar at that time had initiated uh, an incentive for students, but I will come back to that what it is, right? So this particular day, I'm standing. I'm not even in front. I'm somewhere a little behind. So if you're in the front, you're running very fast because you want to go and sit in any of the vantage points Swami is expected to walk by. So that was our deal every single day. How do I get to a point where Swami is expected to walk? So I was a little behind. So when students were rushing inside, I wasn't rushing because I knew I'm not going to get any vantage point. I had no chance, even with my ability to as an athlete, I couldn't outrun the enthusiastic students trying to occupy those vantage points. So I was just walking casually inside, right? And as I was walking, I'm walking in, and then Professor Sudhir Bhaskar is walking from the opposite side towards me, and then he sees me from a distance. He points to me and said, "Come." So I walk up to him. He said, "Go sit in the front." Like where in like we have several blocks in the mandir. So within the portico, right, when Swami comes out of the in the interview room, there's a portico where many of the devotees students sit, especially the VIP sit. So typically when students celebrate their birthdays, they go and sit in they're given the permission to sit in the very front line. And Swami would pretty often come out of the interview room and then put some akshata and bless them. And you all may know about it. So on this particular day, he says, go and sit there in front, right behind the birthday boys. So I didn't know what out of blue, Sudhir Bhaskar comes off opposite to me, catches me and tells me to go and sit in front. So I was like glad I went there. I sat just literally one row behind the birthday boys. And then that day Swami came and blessed them. And then that day Swami also created Vibhuti. And that was the first time Swami actually gave me a created Vibhuti in my hand. Gave it to me and I took it. Uh, Even at that time, it did not dawn on me. Only a few days later, it dawned on me. Oh my God! So this is probably the reward I got for just finishing Satcharita Parayanam. And then ever since, I've tried to read it every chapter, one chapter a day. But even now, when there are important moments in life or troubles in life, I try to do the Parayanam, hoping that the problem will go away or solve. And there are many instances like that which has helped me subsequently. It's Swami's way of kind of showing and reinforcing your faith that you carry on, right? Again, I go back to what I said originally. This by itself will seem like a miracle or an incident, but ultimately to me, it is a step towards the purification of mind. Further on, I will narrate some incidents from the drama time. This was in the year, obviously, after I joined the college, you have to seek Swami's permission to sing in the bhajan group. It's not easy. So I had to work really hard. The first 2 years of my stay there, I had to start by singing in the hostel. Even in hostel, the standards were so high at that time that to get permission to sing in hostel, it took me 2-3 months. I was given a bhajan. I had to practice the bhajan repeatedly and sing it again and again for 3 months. At that time, brother Ajanish was there. Many of you would know. Ajanish was kind of my bhajan guru, right? He and I used to practice many hours in the mornings. So he made me work really hard for even that first bhajan. I still remember it was Rasa Vilola that I sang in hostel. Was my very first bhajan. I had to work really hard. Finally, one day, I think even when I got the opportunity, it was like I was not going to sing that day. So somebody else was going to sing. That person didn't show up. So Ajanish turns to me and said, "Okay, today you sing." So I sang my first bhajan in the hostel, Rasa Vilola. And then I tried, working on learning more bhajans and getting better at it. And subsequently, in my third year of undergraduate is when I was seeking Swami's permission. I asked him a permission once. Swami said, okay, go ask your teacher. That means Swami doesn't want to give permission, right? So when I go and ask the teacher, they explained to me that, hey, it's not that simple. If Swami is sending you back to me, it means he's not ready to give you permission. So I said, okay, I'll keep working. Finally, one day I got up in the portico and said, Swami, actually outside where the students sit, and I said, Swami, I want to sing bhajan. In fact, that particular time I told him in Tamil, and Swami also responded in Tamil. He said, "Padanuma romba sandosham padungo," means you want to sing, very happy you sing. So that was the green signal. So I went back to the teacher and said, okay, now Swami has given me permission. Obviously, there were enough witnesses around me to communicate, to tell the teacher, because how does the teacher know that Swami gave me permission? I could be, pulling that out of thin air for all you know, because in my enthusiasm to sing. But obviously, there were enough people to to verify that Swami did give me permission. But even after that, it took me probably 2-3 months before I could get my first opportunity to sing in front of Swami. I finally sang a Ganesh bhajan in front of Swami, which again, after that, I got many opportunities after that. But uh, I always considered myself a musician and I wanted to be in music. I even got an opportunity to join band. They said, why don't you join band? You have enough music aptitude. Band would be a very good opportunity. But I said, I don't want to be in band because band doesn't give me so much proximity. Plus, if I get into band and pick up any wind instruments, a lot of band instruments are wind instruments, it may spoil my voice. So I was like, I'm not going to do band, right? And band people get opportunity maybe in one of the festivals and occasions. If you're in bhajan group, you're in front of Swami every single day. So that's what was enticing for me. So I kept trying for it, and then eventually got the opportunity, and I never looked back. But drama is something that never crossed my mind ever. And then this was in my second year MSc. Now, typically every year during the winter and summer holidays, I used to go back home. My parents were very I was a son born very late in their age, so they're like I was kind of the apple of the eye on the house. So they were very fond of me. They wanted me to come back. Oftentimes, I would try to negotiate with them, say, "Hey, can I stay for a few days in the holidays with Swami?" Because usually holidays time, most of the students go back to their hometown, so that gave you even more proximity to Swami. So I was trying to negotiate with my parents, but they wouldn't have it. They're like, "You have to be back. We want to spend time with you." So I said, "Okay, it's important." Swami always says, "Make your parents happy." So I used to visit back. It was that in the year of my MSc, final year, so I kind of got away by negotiating with my parents and said, okay, at least the winter holidays, which is about 15 days, I'll stay in Patti this year because this is my final year. I'm not sure I will come back to MBA or not. So allow me to stay, the vacation in Puttaparthi, at least the winter vacation. So they allowed me and I stayed. So one fine day, Swami, this was the year that I don't know if you all recall. This was a fantastic drama that happened. One of the best, not because I acted on it, but it was indeed the best drama of those times. This was a drama about the life of three saints: Ramakrishna Paramahamsa and Vivekananda, of course, Tulasidas and Kabir. So this drama was basically taking several like specific incidents of the life of these three saints and then weaving it in around a modern family that is discussing about spirituality. That's kind of how the drama was scripted. And this was the year that then Prime Minister Vajpayee, late Prime Minister Vajpayee, was going to visit. So Vajpayee, along with Murli Manohar Joshi, who was the then education minister, the chief minister of Andhra Pradesh, a whole bunch of VIPs were going to come to Puttaparthi. So Swami was very particular about the drama and the quality. So the preparation for drama started even much prior to where it would normally start. So what happened at this time was already the casts were selected, and especially if you're in the core cast, you would get plenty of opportunity because Swami would call them literally every day, ask them to act, rehearse, correct the script. He will do all kinds of things. So obviously, I had never experienced that because I had never been in a drama. I never thought of myself as somebody who could act. So all that was going on, and Swami was already giving them interviews. One day, they had gone and then obviously the music teacher who is in charge of the bhajan was also a key ingredient because every Swami's drama had a key. Music was a very important part of it, as you all would know. So the teacher would go, Swami would make him compose, Swami would make him play the composition, Swami would say, okay, I like this, no, change it. All that was happening. So one fine day, they had went into Swami had given the general interview, and then Swami called the core drama group inside, and he was giving them interview. I was sitting in the bhajan hall, obviously waiting for the bhajan to start. Just about 2 minutes before the bhajan started, the interview gets over, Swami lets them out, and they all walk into, like, people walk out, and then the music teacher walks in and then comes and sits behind me. Right behind me is the harmonium, and behind that is the teacher. And then he pokes me with a pen from the back, and I turn and he says, Swami wants you to act in the drama. So it was like joy from heaven, right? I was like, for a moment, I couldn't believe what. Swami asked me to act in a drama, and then before he could tell me more, he had to start the bhajan. So it was like a suspense, a cliffhanger, right? He gave me that much, and it was, it had become 5:30, and then start the bhajan. It has to exactly start at 5:10. 5:30. So anyway, bhajan started, and then Swami came and sat, and in the bhajan, Swami was looking at me, giving me that weird look. So obviously he had talked about me inside. So anyway, I didn't know what had happened. So after the bhajan, he then explained to me that Swami was asking, that thin boy who sits in the front, he will be really good character for Tulsidas. So make him Tulsidas. So that's what Swami had told, and Swami had talked about a few things about me. So the teacher said, you are in the drama, so go talk to the drama director, and we will meet for rehearsal today evening. So very happy, and I went and I was acting, and I started acting. In fact, that drama, Swami spent so many hours. Both initially, he was coming to the auditorium, college auditorium. He would come and sit for maybe 1 hour, 2 hours. He will pick scenes. Okay, play this scene. Come and act this scene. He will say, okay, this is not good. That is not good. He was like literally choreographing and directing the entire drama step by step of the way. Now, after some days, Swami said, oh, it's hassle coming here. You all just come to Purnachandra every day. So that's it. Like Purnachandra was our home for the next several weeks before the drama was enacted. Swami probably saw the drama, I don't know, 30, 40 times before it was actually ultimately enacted. But the beauty about this, and this is something I think about all the time, whether it is drama or whether it is sports meet, Swami would come usually in any function. The chief guest comes and sees that particular occasion for the very first time, right? There's a lot of enthusiasm. The chief guest is seeing for the first time, and everything we are doing is to please the chief guests and others. With Swami, it was unique in the sense that he would come and see that as a casual person that is part of the drama so many times, and yet when the final happens, it feels like he's the ultimate that you're presenting to. It's kind of that. It's a very interesting feeling to think about. So in this particular instant, what happened was Swami sort of played a drama within a drama with me, and I'll tell you quickly what that meant. So I started acting. Swami came and he gave me more opportunities to talk to me, and I acted a few times as Tulsidas. Then after a few days, Swami was like, one particular day, Swami had called. Even then, I was not being called into. Even though I was a core character, I was still not being called into the core interview. Right? I was just acting in front of Swami. Swami would talk to me, but he was not. I was not being called into the interview room. A few days later, during the practice session, the teachers came and said, "Hey, Swami is upset with you. Swami told us today that you're not smiling at him in the bhajan hall. You're always, serious face. You should always smile at Swami." They're kind of giving me advice. So I was like, where is this coming from? So, and I can tell you jokingly that from that moment onwards, every time I sat in front of Swami walked by, I was sitting like this, right? Like big smile. It became a habit. It became so ingrained in me that that is the only way I presented myself to Swami. But it started like that, and then Swami was like, no, not good. And then finally, I was actually removed from that character, right? I was removed from playing Tulsidas. I was given a different character. But that upset me a lot. I cried. I don't know how many days I cried. Like I would cover my face with towel and I will cry because it was so saddening. And then Swami also at the time, until then, Swami is talking to me a lot, and suddenly Swami's posture changes. Right, he's putting me through a test. First time, my character has changed. I'm still in the drama, at least. I'm thankful. I'm still acting. I'm still going into Purnachandra, sitting around, getting all the proximity. But Swami started ignoring me, right? And Swami can ignore a mountain in front of him. That is the ability he had. So there were days I would tell you that, and Swami often, like Swami would come. There was this, in those hospitals, you have those metal chairs. Oftentimes, they would not even place Swami's chair. Swami just walk in and just sit in the chair. So there have been instances where I sat literally in front of Swami. Like, how close can you get? Cannot get any closer than that. Swami is sitting in the chair. You are literally sitting at his feet. In one instance, I was sitting at his feet and I was holding a glass of water for him, literally in front of his face like that, right? Even then, Swami didn't see me, right? He managed to ignore me the entire moment. So busy with the drama, I'm sitting there. He knows I'm sitting there, but he doesn't give me one look. So he gave me a really cold treatment for a time period. And he would come, he will walk. We will be like, and we were in the Purnachandra all the time, and even we had the tailor sitting in the Purnachandra, because Swami would say, okay, stitch it like this. Swami would recommend variations in the costumes, and it will be immediately like the tailor is sitting right. Swami's chair is here. We're all sitting around, and there's a tailor sitting there. Like all the tailor is doing is stitching costumes, right? Even as the practice is going on, and Swami would say, no, stitch it like this, do it like that. And then all that I definitely got an opportunity to experience and see. But except that Swami would ignore me, right? And then it was a very tough period. And then when I look back, I think about it nostalgically that, that for a Lord, it takes a lot for a Lord to ignore you, right? Because if he has to ignore you, he has to be thinking about you all the time, right? Be thinking about Swami is one thing, but Swami thinking about you, hey, how do I ignore this guy as I walk through him? Takes a lot of effort, right? So I was glad that at least that way Swami, was thinking about me. But anyway, he also taught me a lesson, and that, hey, you have to always have a smiling face. Swami used to always say, why castrol face? Always have a smiling face. So I think that was his way of reinforcing that throughout your life, you've got to keep a smiling face. Don't keep a serious face. And I also realize in the corporate world we all live in, things are so serious and we're all so busy. Oftentimes, having a smiling face, taking a laugh eases the pressure, improves the mood around you, right? Improves, everybody's sentiment. I think it has many benefits if I think about it now. But at that time, it was Lord's own way of teaching me that lesson. But how it all ended was, obviously I did have still a critical role to play in the drama. I played the drama. The final drama came out excellent. It was highly appreciated by the audiences after the drama. In fact, after the drama, Swami ceremonially comes up to the stage, and then he took pictures with us, and he gave us all this silver tumbler, right? It's like that's really nice jewelry box. You see, it gives a jewelry box with a velvet cloth. So it was that kind of a box, and inside each of them there was a silver tumbler. I still have it back in my home. Swami gave to each of us. But where it finally came back together was on the day of the drama. Obviously, we were all behind the Purnachandra auditorium. We were all had my costumes. I played this role of a Muslim in the Kabir section of the drama. So Swami comes in and then he's checking out all the costumes, and then he looks at me, looks at my beard, and says, "Okay, good." So that was after many days. That's when Swami kind of broke ice himself and said, "Okay, finally, finally, he's giving me some recognition." And then after that, the drama went on, and then drama went excellent. And the end, Swami came up to the stage, and then as he was personally handing over that tumbler to every one of the actors. And then finally he came to me, and then I cannot describe the. It was an ocean of compassion, is how I would see it. The way he looked at me as he was handing out that particular uh, tumbler. Again, it's no words said, right? Nothing, right? But through eyes, he communicated that, oh, what a misery I put you through. I have all the compassion for you now. So it was that kind of feeling, like immensely compassionate feeling in his eyes. I could literally see compassion oozing out of his eye. And he handed over that cup to me, and then things were fine after that. After that, he kind of started talking to me again. But again, so he puts us through these experiences. When we go through it, it's extremely painful. He doesn't have to do this only when he's in a physical form. He can do it when he's not in physical form also, right? But I go back to what I said at the very beginning about the incident that I narrated from the hostel. Is he said, you can go wherever you want, you can do whatever you want. Just know that I am always with you, in you, around you. And most importantly, he said, keep that thought and that feeling close to your heart. Cherish it, or keep it firm in your heart. There is an exact same saying from Shirdi Sai Satcharita, where Shirdi Baba also says the same thing, that, hey, no matter where you go or what you do, just know that whatever you do is known to me. I am the indweller and the wire puller of everything that happens. So let's all recognize that every one of us goes through ups and downs in our life. Sometimes things are great, sometimes things are not. But in the larger scheme of things, none of this matters. I think we are all in our journey. Swami has a plan for us. The very fact that we came to Swami's fold, we think about it, think about him, we spend time. How many people out of the 6.9 billion or 7 billion people in the world, how many get to do that? Probably a very small percentage if you think about it. So the fact that we got the opportunity, it's for us to cherish it every moment. Remind ourselves, our mind is, as Swami used to say, mind is a mad monkey. it always hops around and jumps around. So we just have to find our own ways of reminding ourselves why we are here, and the core purpose of our life, and the fact that Swami is there with us all the time, and he will be there with us no matter what. So with that, final words, thank you so much for the opportunity. And as I said at the beginning, this is not you listening to me alone. This is also me listening to me and reminding myself. So thank you for the opportunity, Brother Murali and everybody.
Thank you, brother. It's so heartening to hear your experiences. You took us back to Patti, and you showed how Swami loves individuals and how Swami puts you through different scenarios where you learn on your own. Thanks for your lessons. And I would request Brother Sham to come and give his closing remarks on this. Brother Sham.
Sairam, everyone. Sairam, Brother Balaji, your talk was so beautiful, so heartfelt, and you, while recalling your own memories of your association with Swami and the time that you spent at the university in and around Swami, you helped us to actually just visualize everything as if we were there with you in your journey. For instance, when you are talking about Suguna's, the example of Suguna that Swami gives, the Gopi, and how the pining that she had for the Lord, and she was ignorant of putting her finger in the flame, and the pining, and the pining that you experienced as a student when you joined there in '94 during the construction of the Sai Kulant Hall, and how that pining made you want the Lord more. And every week that the teachers go and come back and tell you of the wonderful time they spent there, it kind of adds to the pining. And at a different part of your talk, you mentioned about spirituality is a mind game, and it's all about purification of the mind. Like everything that we do, whether it's bhakti, karma, jnana, is all about purifying the mind. And if you notice, in that pining process, that pining is the fire in which the purification is happening. And it's happening in a faster rate. And this pining and this purification of the tapas that you did, again, later on is in the play of the Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, Vivekananda, Tulsidas, and Kabir Das, how you were first not having a role at all, and then how the bhajan teacher comes and tells you that, hey, you're now going to be Tulsidas. So then your hopes go up, and then you do play that role up to a point, and then again, you get another role, and then you're going through this roller coaster of emotions, and yet your pining is that much more accentuated through this process. And then, as if the icing on the cake, when Swami says your beard is fine, and then later on, when he gives you the silver tumbler as a memento, as a gift from him on the final day on the stage after the beautiful performance, and the compassionate look that he has, and that tells you that he was just playing a game all the time. It was just a mind game. The mind game was so that you get detached from who you think you are and attached to who you really are, which is himself. The more you pine for him, the more less you think about yourself, the more happier you are. And like you said, in that process of purification, you said it frees us from everything that binds us so that liberation follows automatically. I think that was a beautiful lesson, and a thing that makes us strong in that process, because purification of mind is always a little painful, like you mentioned, all these incidents. It's not easy, but at that time, I think what you said initially, what Swami said to you all in the hostel, saying that no matter where you go, do whatever you want, but know that I'm in you, around you, above you, below you, beside you, and make this feeling firm and close to your heart, meaning that live it. It's not just a teaching that you hear and it sounds nice and it sounds catchy, it sounds pretty cool. Like you say, God is everywhere. That's beautiful. But when you feel that God is everywhere, that's a different feeling. So he's asking you to feel that. And I think thanks for sharing that, because that is what this whole part of spirituality is about. Like you mentioned, it's only about constantly living in that presence, constantly connecting with him, and constantly transforming ourselves every moment, so that eventually there's nothing left to be transformed, because it has all been done. Thank you very much for this beautiful evening. And of course, I like your fascination or association with the number 9. We have a Sai brother here in Dallas who's very, very big on that. I'll say his name and call him out and embarrass him a little bit. His name is Sunil Bhai Patel. He always thinks, like sometimes he says, he's busy when I call him or something. He says, hey, can I call you back in 9 minutes? Because he wants to say that 9. So he doesn't even say 10 minutes. He'll say 9 minutes. So that's how it is. And like you mentioned, like in the case of your own daughter, second daughter, the birth, 13 November 2010 adds up to 9. And then 10 days later, you did the Namakarana, the naming on Swami's birthday. And it all ties back to what you said initially at the very opening statement. Says Swami has a plan for each one of us, for us. And he subtly molds us in that plan. We may not know it, but he's actually chiseling us, he's molding us, leading us down that path. And you also shared through your experiences how in this day and time when we're looking for instant gratification, we don't like to play with unknowns. We want to always be in control of a situation, whether it is, the outcomes of your admission process, or it's the outcome of your, when Swami will talk to you again, so on and so forth. We want that instant gratification. Like that, Swami has been, like you said, he can do this process whether he's in person or he's beyond the physical form also. He's taking the whole world through this process of the COVID and other things, wherein we don't know when this thing is ending, where it's ending, and how many else will fall a victim to it or whatever. So this uncertainty, as he says, love my uncertainty, you helped us to embrace that and purify ourselves and pine for him and tune into him. Thank you very much for this beautiful evening. Time well spent, and we feel that much closer to Swami because of your sharing. Thank you so much, brother. Sai
Thank
Ram.
you so much, brother. Thank you for the opportunity. Sai Ram.
Sai Ram. Thank you, brother. Back
Thank
to you.
you all. Yeah, with this we'll close our session with 1 moment, 3 Shantis. Om Shanti
Shanti, Shanti.
Sai Ram, brother, once
Sai
again.
Ram.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Sai
Sai
Ram.
Ram.
Sai Ram. Thank you so much, brother.